Where are the anthems for our youth? What happened to music that meant something? The Who at the Kingdom, Kiss at the Coliseum. Where is the Misty Mountain Hop? Where is the Smoke on the Water? Where is the Iron Man of today?
We're not going out tonight, are we?
Look at this. Most of these bands are like well-designed bottles of bleach. It's beer and lifestyle music. I mean, it's like the next World War will be sponsored by I don't know what.
Let's just take a bath. Hey everybody, this is Burning Ewok episode special. This is a special episode of the Burning Ewok podcast. It's kind of like when Theo took drugs and they had to have a very special episode of the Cosby Show, or if like, you know, what's his name, Michael, or what, you know, Alex Keaton, you know, was drinking and driving. They had to have a very special episode. This is like that. Yes. This is one that everybody should know about. So I'm joined by my friend, Mike Davis.
Mike Davis.
Yeah. I've known Mike for about 100 years, and he reached out to me and he said, "Hey, I'd like to talk about some 90s music." So what were you thinking, Mike?
I was thinking it would be fun to sort of talk about, because we both came of age musically in the 90s, and in a lot of ways I kind of think I calcified on music in the 90s, but I've continued a relationship with, like, a healthy relationship with music over the last 30 years. So that's turned into something, and I bet it has for you too, and for other people who listen. So I thought like a back and forth, a discussion about what we liked, what it's done to us, and where we see ourselves going with it would be a fun conversation.
I could pretty much talk about this for about 7 hours. Let's try to keep it a little shorter than that. So I love this topic. And when you sent the message to me, all I could think about was just like the memories that you and I have had in high school.
Yes.
Because we hit it at the same time. I remember playing basketball in your driveway, and whatever the hot new CD of the week was, we're playing it, you know, talking about it. Getting in the car.
And we could afford.
Yeah.
We could afford that hot new CD of the week because we both had a job that paid us cash.
Yeah.
Roughly $20 a game, and that was about the price of a CD.
Yeah. So we umpired, and that was a racket.
Look, all of those games were umpired. Okay.
Yes.
By who? And by who did it by themselves, and who also did it by themselves? Not a thing.
Not a game was missed, and all the kids were umped.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
And so we took our umpire money, and we would hit the mall, hit Best Buy. Best Buy was just kind of coming about then too. I mean, man,
we had options.
We did have a lot of options, but I mean that was like, unlike you millennials, if you're listening, or Gen Zers who haven't ever paid for music, we paid for music. Damn it. we actually got physical copies of music with like in fact, I'm still buying music. Right here in my hand I have the new Pearl Jam album that came out this week. Speaking of 90s music, so
yes, I imagine Pearl Jam will come up.
It'll come up. I got Eddie behind me, and I got a lot of the boys behind me. Actually, they're hanging out back there, so they all say hi.
Yeah, but before we had Best Buy, Best Buy was when we had a car.
Yeah.
Before that, there was Bike Trail. There was Coconuts.
Yep.
Whatever was in the mall, Sam Goody.
Yeah. Okay.
So
let's start here. Let's start with early. Let's talk pre-90s.
Okay.
So where did
your relationship start?
So my relationship is it's all over the place. In I would say my early years, it would be me waking up to my dad playing Pink Floyd really loud at 8 in the morning on a Saturday down the hall in our little ranch in Roselle, Illinois. And it would wake me up. I didn't care. It was kind of cool. You know, dad's doing stuff. He's listening to music loud. It was always fun. But I was never really into a lot of music. there was always the stuff my parents listened to, and my mom and dad had really good taste in music. So, like, or the taste that like a lot of it goes either one way. Either you hate your parents' music or you love your parents' music. I don't think there's any in between there. And but I didn't really have that connection until later on in high school, because throughout the 80s it was Michael Jackson, it was the Cars, Rick Springfield, and
These are quality. This is all quality stuff.
Lionel Richie, things like that. That's kind of like my foundation, and then Weird Al Yankovic kind of topped it all off. And then it went into the late 80s with like the Milli Vanillis and CNC Music Factories of like 1990, and that was like right at the cusp of like when I started to hit things. And the first one that hit me ever would have been Faith No More's Epic and that Real Thing album. So how about you? Like, where do you lead up to like your gateway drug of music?
So I was growing up in Schaumburg, not very far from you.
Yeah.
And my mom listened to music very openly. My dad did it a little more, on kind of his own when he was working on the car and stuff. So I wasn't aware of his musical taste yet. But my mom listened to a lot of the oldies. So that was like Beatles, Buddy Holly, and one of my absolute favorites, the Monkees. So I was listening to them really early on. But my favorite thing to do was we'd listen to Dick Biondi on the radio station, and we'd actually call in. And this is in the days when like the DJ would pick up the phone and ask you what you wanted to hear. And you'd tell him, hey, it's Mike in Schaumburg. I want to hear Daydream Believer by the Monkees. And then you just sit by the radio and hope that it happens sometime in the next hour or two. And I had all kinds of time for that. It made me fall in love with both music and terrestrial radio. So I ended up liking both of those things a lot. As I grew a little bit older, I somehow discovered old radio shows on, I think it was 97.9, or it was on the Loop, or whatever the station was at the time. And then they had a little thing on, I think it was on Saturday nights, late Saturday nights, called the Dr. Demento Show.
Yeah.
And that was hugely formative for me, like hearing all of this silly music. Some of it really, really old, some of it a little more current, a lot of it satire, and of course, plenty of Weird Al Yankovic. And then, life goes on. I discovered my dad likes Pink Floyd. A CD player comes into the house. Turns out he also likes Led Zeppelin, and I find that intriguing because I see Led Zeppelin post, T-shirts around school, and I'm thinking, how is it my dad likes something like this? And then, then I start to form my own ideas, and I start getting into some like heavier stuff, which I found really intriguing. And one of my very early ones was Living Colour, and they were incredible. It's one of those things you hear Cult of Personality for the first time and you're a different person the next minute. And then, same thing, Faith No More, both visually and audio, because I had both of those things streaming into my brain all the time. I had plenty of hours of MTV on, so I could learn a lot of new stuff, but it captured me on both of those fronts. So Faith No More put me on this path of constant exploration, I'd say. And then really it's been onward and forward ever since.
Yeah. So I remember getting a CD player about the time the Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey soundtrack came out.
That's a great soundtrack.
And so when I got my CD player, the first two albums I bought were Faith No More, The Real Thing, and the Bill and Ted soundtrack, because it had A Perfect Crime by Faith No More on there. So I was like, I got to have that, So I had those two, and then the next two discs I purchased were Use Your Illusions 1 and 2, where I wasn't old enough to go to the midnight party to get it, but I remember dragging my parents to Rose Records in Crystal Lake, which is now leveled, and they're building apartments there.
Yeah.
Just in case you didn't know, it's crazy.
I didn't know. I didn't know there ever was a Rose Records in Crystal Lake.
Yeah, it was by the Service Merchandise, which is no longer there as well. And
no!
Yeah,
what do we
that
do for
whole
Christmas?
Shopping center gone. So I remember I dragged my parents to Rose Records because I'm like, I want to go get the new Guns N' Roses albums because it's got that sweet Terminator 2 song on it.
Oh, that
You Could Be Mine.
That song rules.
Yeah. And I went and grabbed, my parents dragged them down there and got excited. It was like 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night. Run into the store. Or no, they said the party was starting at 9, so I dragged them out at 9 o'clock at night on like a Tuesday. Because I think music came out either Tuesday or Wednesday. I forget. Was it Wednesdays that they used to come out? Or Tuesday?
I don't remember.
Whatever it was that night before. It was a weekday night. I drove out there. Got out the car 9 o'clock, walk in the store, like, I want to get the albums. I'm ready, like holding my money in my hand, like, like show me the CDs. And he's like, yeah, have some popcorn. We'll release it in 3 hours at midnight. And my heart sunk because there's no way my parents are going to let me stay out here. And,
it's a school night.
Yeah. And so, sulked back to the car and my parents said, I'm like, can I go back in and get popcorn? No, let's go. And then took me home. I had to go get the albums the next day. So those were two pretty big albums for me when those came out.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a huge Guns N' Roses fan. I wasn't a huge rock fan other than like some of the classics. And then like, I think like the earliest, like if I'm going to go back, like even before like the stuff I talked about in the 80s, the first Van Halen album, like, was like the first album I ever loved, and I didn't know I loved it. I heard like some songs later on, and I'm like, wait a minute, I know all those songs. It's like my favorite music, And Ain't Talking About Love to this day might be one of my single favorite rock anthems and guitar songs. And so having Guns N' Roses, where I didn't really listen to the earlier stuff, but my parents did. My parents had Appetite for Destruction. They had, but they were into like whatever the rock thing going on at the time was for the most part. They had like Skid Row and all, they were picking them all up, and I didn't really care, Yeah,
and Skid Row was one of my early bands.
Yeah, and it was just like, it was fine, but then Nirvana hit. I heard this little song called "Smells Like Teen Spirit," and it is the most cliche thing ever, but it's also like the most accurate. It was mind-blowing to me. It was like, that was it. That's the thing that changed everything for me. And it's just like, and it does sound like the most cliche thing ever, because it really, but it absolutely happened.
It was palpable, like at the time.
Yeah.
There was really like, there was before that song became available and popular and accessible, and then immediately after, like, music was very different. And at the time, you actually felt that knife edge of a difference. Yeah. Where you just realize, like, there used to be Poison and Warrant, and now there really isn't.
Yeah. But it was the absolute opposite. Like, the attitude was different. Everything about it was different. And I think I never really connected with like the party lifestyle of the Motley Crues or any of that. Like, none of that appealed to me. Like the girls of Poison, up all night, sleep all day, like that attitude just never resonated. So I didn't connect in with that music. But Nirvana wasn't that. It was, it was the start of, everything. It was the anti-corporate, anti-this. It was punk. It's new type of punk, and that's what resonated with me. I didn't have the Dead Kennedys or the Sex Pistols or Naked Raygun, because I was too young for it at the time, So I had this though. And,
I'm similar to you. I got Use Your Illusions 1 and 2 before I got Appetite for Destruction. I think it's a long time before I actually got Appetite for Destruction, because it was always around. Like, if I wanted something from it, it was either on the radio or I could find it pretty easily.
I could just go downstairs and grab it for my parents.
Yeah, like it was around, but like Use Your Illusions 1 and 2, like that was newer, and I had to acclimate to that. Even when those were out, those felt like there's just a lot there. And it's weird because it's oddly endured, but not all of it. Right. Yeah. So some things on there are just bonkers. Like November Rain is a long, epic, good at times and only good when I want to listen to it kind of song. But other songs on there, like Coma, is kind of interesting. It's aged in an interesting way. Civil War, another great song that's weird in that, like standing out on those albums.
So I have a 14-year-old son who I said, "Hey, what you listening to?" He's like, "Civil War." I'm like, "The Marvel movie?" And he goes, "No, Guns N' Roses." I'm like, "Really? Huh? That's a good song. That's a good
Yeah,
song.
it was.
Yeah. Like, all right. I just, that of all Guns N' Roses songs, I just didn't expect him to be listening to. But
Yeah. Or get in the ring, just sort of
yeah.
like that was around forever.
Yeah.
But chanting that in high school.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Like the badge of honor of getting your first like explicit lyrics sticker on the bottom of your CD jewel
Yeah,
case, like that. Yeah, there you go. Um,
yeah.
I
I had
yeah.
a a warrant tape, like a cherry pie warrant tape that had that sticker on the bottom, and then at the very end of that tape, it had something called "Ode to Tipper Gore," which was just like a long string of profanities that they had culled together through
I remember
concerts.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember that.
I wonder if I
Yeah,
could find that anywhere. I thought that would have been worth something, like because it didn't appear on the CD. So it's just on the tape. I'm going to keep the tape. Something.
it probably is worth something. I mean, I don't know. I don't know about like if it's only on the tape, yeah, it would be like that's something
Mm-hmm.
that because again, like all that stuff, people have like thrown CDs away or just given them to half price. Collectors are starting to go for CDs now. That's a thing, and it's flipped. And in the last
Yeah.
year, vinyl is outselling CDs for the first
Oh
time
yeah.
in forever. So which mind blowing. And I
Mm-hmm.
like purchasing vinyls every once in a while, but I got to be in the mood.
Yeah.
Because you know what, for all you vinyl snobs out there, it's a pain in the ass to listen to 3 songs and then flip a record. As much as I may like it, and I've got like a pretty good stereo in the basement, and you know, playing it nice and loud. But yeah, I'll go in the other room, listening to music, blast it in the other room, and then I got to walk over there after each side and flip it, and I'm like what caveman would do. But I
Won't
I
play in
do
your
admire
car at
it.
all.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
it's hard to put the vinyl in the car and get that rolling.
it really
Yeah,
is.
the skip protection sucks.
You
Yeah.
can't do it on a hot day; it's just going to melt. So, also around this time, tape decks on things that also had CD players was relatively new and novel.
Hmm.
And tape decks on radios, like that was initially that's something that I've been like drawing lines to with something like AI in education, right? So I work in community college education, and we're all sort of responding to AI, and one of the ways is people are thinking about it with respects to cheating all the time, right? Or what you can steal from other people. And I'm thinking back to like when they decided to would put tape decks on radios, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, they're going to steal music off the radio and never going to buy music again." And that was the thought, that was the fright then. Ultimately, yes, we're not going to buy music here. We are going to subscribe to it though. So we'll end up seeing. But with tape decks, like we got to make our own music compilations. We got to trade them with each other. And we got to sort of
What
making a mixtape for somebody was like a great,
I don't
a
think I could.
wonderful act.
Like if I for whatever reason wasn't married anymore and had to hit the dating market again, like mixtape was my like groove. Like I don't know how I'd cope. I don't know how I could do it in these days. So I just
No, you
gotta hope.
couldn't.
I just have to hope my wife outlives me and don't have to worry about it. Because
Or,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, like otherwise I'm going to be looking for someone with a Walkman.
yeah, it's not gonna work. It's gonna be bad.
Yeah.
Or if I'm my actual true soulmate. Sorry, wife.
uh, but like all those made so many mixtapes for so many people,
Yeah.
but like it was and on tape was a fun way to do that, because
Oh
if you
yeah.
want to make a 90-minute mixtape, it took 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And you sat there thinking about like what's going to come up next. I've only got 2 minutes left on this side. What's going to happen? What I need a great 2 minute only song. What's that going to be?
Yeah.
It's got to follow this other one perfectly too. It's sending a message here.
Yeah, it was an art form, and
Mm-hmm.
I got really really good at it, and then tapes went obsolete.
Yeah,
So
tapes went out the window.
a few
CDs were good for it for a while too. It
I,
just wasn't the same. Like dragging and dropping just wasn't the same.
no, not the same. No, it never felt good. Mixtape always felt better. I did get for my wife a few years ago. I bought her a all-in-one stereo system. So it's got it's a Teak TEAC
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, turntable, but then it has the CD player built into it. It's also got Bluetooth enabled stuff, so I just plug my phone into it and let it roll, listen to whatever I want through it when I'm upstairs. But then it also has a tape deck on it,
That's cool.
And yeah, and it's weird because now we like search out tapes. So, I've got a few. I have a few like old tapes, but then like we found like the old like Return of the Jedi. We turn the page and R2D2 beeps like this. You remember like those? Yeah, we got a couple of those on tape, so we were playing those and getting a pretty good laugh out of them.
Oh,
But
that's perfect.
yeah. So like the just it's interesting because like that goes in with like what we were talking about at the beginning of this with like the generations below us, and I'm talking like 10 years younger than us didn't pay for music. LimeWire
Mhm.
and Pirate Bay, those were their Best Buys. It's why Best Buy no longer exists, or the beginning of why Best Buy no longer exists the way that they did, um,
Mhm.
in just like the media in general. Why I have to pay so much more for a concert now, which I
Yeah.
which I kind of calculated, and it probably is cheaper uh, than what I used to pay for per year in music.
Hmm.
You know, because I really like live music. I haven't seen as much live music recently, but that trend's like changing like this year and the end of last year, where I'm gonna have seen like maybe about 8 different concerts like in the last rolling year, which is crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
yeah, so it's not quite my like 18 to 25-year-old numbers, but it's not bad. It's
Who's
not
got
bad.
who's got that kind of time? Who's got that kind of
Not
time?
I, not I.
Mm-mm.
But anyway, let's move on. Let's go on. Okay, so Nirvana hits, right?
Yep.
And
Nirvana hits,
we get this giant stream of music, and
and
like
Seattle rules all of a
yes, it,
sudden.
it becomes everything. I mean, we had Alice in Chains, but nobody cared,
Hmm.
But now we start to care. And then that single soundtrack comes out, and you had Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, and then you learn that, oh wait, Pearl Jam had this band called Mother Love Bone before them, you know, and this
Hmm.
band Mudhoney was also connected with this band Green River, and just like this entire web of Seattle music that's hitting. And um, did it get overblown? Yes. Did I care at the time? No. I just wanted more of it.
Yeah.
And it was like what it became my identity. Like all this
Hmm.
music, everything that I was into, I dove in head first and didn't look back. And it made my teen years a lot of fun.
How many of those bands did you see?
Let's see. Are we gonna talk about Nirvana?
Oh, we can, yeah.
Okay, remember when we wanted to go see Nirvana and
Yeah.
you didn't want to drive to the
Yes.
city?
Yes, I remember this.
And it was like the only concert that they played, You're Right, was at the Aragon the night that we would have gone. And we're like, that's okay. We're going to catch them when they go to Lollapalooza. And then they canceled Lollapalooza. That's okay. We're going to see them next time they come around. And they still haven't come around. I don't know why, but, they still haven't come
Yeah,
around.
it's
So I did miss Nirvana. But I did get to see Foo Fighters on their first tour after all that.
mhm.
They opened up for Mike Watt, who was like the bass player for the Minutemen and singer
Minutemen,
in Firehose.
Fire Hose.
It might have been Minutemen also. He was in a few bands.
Yeah, he's played with a bunch
So
of cats.
yeah, a whole bunch of different ones, but Firehose is the stuff that I knew some of the music for, and then
Yeah.
and that was at the Metro, so I got to see
Hmm.
Foo Fighters do their first album before it was even released, and we're like, well, saw two people that were in Nirvana, So I mean
Hmm.
that was a cool show. I mean, I got to see Soundgarden. I've seen Pearl Jam a million times. Um,
Yeah. So I know I owe all of Jacob's high school an apology for not wanting to drive out to go see
it's just me.
Nirvana on that night.
It's really just Mike
It's you
Weinhammer
and
and me.
Hammond. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's it. I don't know if anybody cared as much. I know
I'm sure Nirvana cares. They could have sold 3 more T-shirts that night.
maybe Kurt Cobain would still be alive, Mike. Maybe. Do you ever think about that?
Oh. Constantly. This is a support group, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's what we try to be. So let's see. I never saw the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I
I
didn't.
still haven't seen them.
Uh,
I've never seen Pearl Jam.
you've never seen Pearl Jam, huh?
No. At this point, it's like I'm trying. I'm trying not to see them. Same with Dave Matthews Band. I never saw them. and it's like
I
it
never
just
saw, I
I
never
just
saw Dave
haven't.
Matthews either. I'm probably fine with that.
No, but Pearl Jam is one I should see, and there's no reason for me not to see him now.
I really think you would enjoy the show. It's a
Oh,
fantastic.
I have no doubt.
Absolutely fantastic. Did
I've
you
been
ever
liking.
catch
I
Soundgarden?
like. No,
Nine Inch Nails?
no, so no.
Okay.
I
Who
would
would
have
you see
loved
then?
that. Oh, who did I see? Billy Joel. So that Billy Joel on the was it the We Didn't Start the Fire? What was what was the name of that tour?
That must have been
Anyway, that was a good.
that was probably 80s though, right? 88,
Yeah, that was
89?
late. That was
Doesn't
late.
count. We're
Late
talking
80s.
90s.
Let's see. I saw Afghan Wigs. That
Yeah.
was with you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Afghan Wigs. That's one of my favorite underrated bands of the. Still pumping out good music too.
Oh yeah. So I got to see. I saw them. I saw them with you. They kind of went and did a bunch of things, became adults in different ways, and then really reformed. It's not so much like a reunite and go out and do some stuff. Like they completely reformed and like they're pumping out solid music.
Really solid.
And,
like the last 2-3 albums I absolutely love.
Mm-hmm. So I saw him a little more recently. I saw him at the Metro most recently.
Oh, did you?
And that was I was upstairs. 20 just before I left Chicago, so like 2015, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was a great show. Yeah, I didn't get a lot of these early bands in the early 90s. It just wasn't something I was doing a lot of. I did more of it in college.
Okay.
What was weird is like in college, I'd get to a lot of really small shows. I worked at a radio station, and so I was trying to sponsor a bunch of music, but I get to go see Big Head Todd the Monsters.
Cool.
I'd get to see a lot of folk music, interestingly enough. We put together a lot of concerts, all folk music. Like a lot of folk musicians going across the country would come through Bloomington, Illinois. So Ani DeFranco was one of the people we'd see a lot.
That would make my wife really jealous. That's probably her favorite act.
Yeah, so she was fantastic to see, and we got to see her like get bigger and bigger over 4 years. So she was playing in like a small place, and then she kind of sold out our gymnasium, right? So that was a big deal. I got to introduce her on the last one.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, that
was a lot of fun.
She always seemed like excellent people.
Yeah, and she's tiny too, like just really, really little. I got to book the Drovers to open up for her, and so that was a fun one.
I got to see them in DeKalb.
They were fun.
Yeah.
I took a guitar lesson from their guitar player.
Really?
Michael Fitzpatrick. Yeah, and I think their drummer, the guy who used to stand up and play drums, he became a software developer. But yeah, so I got into seeing live music just a little bit later than everybody else. So I didn't see a lot of the Pearl Jams, Alice in Chains, or anybody else in some of those places. But when I was going to shows like at the Metro and stuff, I wouldn't see him play, but I'd see Wesley Willis.
Yeah.
Do you remember this guy?
I was with you when I think he threatened to stab me with a pen.
Yeah. Did he headbutt either one of us? I think
he
headbutted
somebody
I think I got a headbutt. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you had one of those paintings or pen drawings that he would sell for $50, they're worth a lot of money right now.
Yeah.
That would have been an interesting piece of art. You go to the Metro and you don't want to like be holding the piece of art for a 3-hour show. Yeah.
Just I'm standing right here. Don't come near me. Well, do you remember how you'd smell after the shows? Yeah. When people could still smoke in those places.
Yeah, you smell like smoke, marijuana, and beef jerky.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was disgusting. A little bit of beer thrown on you. Yeah.
Drenched in beer, drenched in sweat. And it was just disgusting.
Yeah. But it was also exhilarating. I mean, it was
fantastic.
Absolutely some of my favorite times. There was a purity about like the early mosh pit days, and I'm not talking like the G.G. Allen mosh pit stuff. I'm not talking, I'm talking, you go see Urge Overkill at the Metro with the Chicago crowd when Urge Overkill was like, killing it. and just like that crowd just bopping in sync and just being inside of it, and everybody just, somebody gets knocked over, the Red Sea's part, and everybody picks that person up, and we're all friends and just having a great time. And there
Hmm.
was like this purity that like slowly was lost between like 93 and like 97. Like it by like the
Hmm.
end of the 90s, you know, it turned into Woodstock 99. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
whatever whatever year the Woodstock was. But it was like a
Hmm.
complete, like everything that I loved about that, you know, anti-establishment Nirvana attitude, the grunge attitude, the Pearl Jam not wanting to accept an award because it's all art and how can we judge it attitude, that whole thing turned in it like kind of came full circle back with like the new metal era of the Lincoln, not, I don't know about Lincoln Park, but Fred Durst
Hmm.
and all that kind of like muddied the waters towards the late 90s to me,
Yeah.
and it just like it was like I felt so lucky to like live in that moment.
Hmm.
And I don't think, like, well, I'll come back to that later because I think there's some really interesting things happening right now at this moment. But it's been a long time coming, like, because I mean I got away from a lot of music, over the last 20 years,
Yeah.
and kind of stuck to like the stuff that we're talking about right now. It's like, yeah, Pearl Jam came out with an album, I went and got that, or oh look, Chris Cornell's now with Audio Slave, and that's guys from Rage Against the Machine. So that sounds
Hmm.
interesting. I'll get that. Oh, who's this Jack White guy? Or
Yeah.
every certain band, Silver Sun Pickups is a band over the last 15 years that I absolutely fell in love with that came out more recently. But
Hmm.
or Greta Van Fleet,
Yeah.
who my kids just found out we're going to see in Milwaukee at the end of next month. So
That's awesome.
totally stoked about that because those guys are phenomenal. And they're kind of
So
they're holding the torch. They're holding the torch for rock and roll.
they are in a way that's easy for us to sort of glom onto. But I mean, do you realize how close we were to classic rock? Well, we now think of this classic rock when we were in high school.
Yeah.
I mean, like Wonderful Tonight. That was one of our prom songs,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that was a really old song
Yeah.
when we decided it was our prom song.
Right. That was crazy.
And so, yeah, we were really close to what we call classic rock now. And I'm not, and we even thought of it as classic rock then. So
Um,
it's kind of nuts.
well, yeah. I mean, think about it. Zeppelin was big. What 70? Like, was it 68 to 75? Or even 80? No, they were like pretty much through the 70s, right?
Mm-hmm.
I might have my dates
Yeah,
mixed up, but anyway,
I
like,
don't know the years.
but I mean, like early 70s is like the major Zeppelin stuff.
Mm-hmm.
20 years later is the stuff that we're listening to, and now we're 30 years past that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's actually more. It's more than that.
Yes.
So you're
Yeah.
trying to make us younger than we are. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Always. Always.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, I was at like in college. That's kind of what I did. I didn't go away to school though, right away.
Mm-hmm.
So I did the community college thing for a couple of years. I was making pretty good money with my part-time job, and then I started working at the Riverboat Casino, making really good money on,
Mm-hmm.
tips, parking cars. And so every other weekend I was at the Aragon, the Metro, the Riv, or somewhere seeing some band.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to see a lot of good acts, and there's some that I've missed, but I got to see REM, you know. I
That's
saw, I,
cool.
I probably saw Collective Soul like three too many times, four too many times, you know.
So four.
Yeah, yeah, about that many times,
So
you know.
so funny thing is, that guy lives in my neighborhood,
Collective Soul guy?
and yeah,
You live in a
and
beautiful
there was
neighborhood, by the way. I drove through your
it,
neighborhood. Not necessarily your
it's
neighborhood, but your area. I gotta say,
yeah,
man, it's out of a storybook. It's really beautiful.
it's stunning. The Delray area in over in DC in
Yeah,
Alexandria, I
it's
really like it. I like living here.
fantastic, man. You live in a great
Yeah,
spot. Yeah.
So we had one of my neighbors had a party, and they played. They had a bunch of bands come by and play, and they're all dad bands. And they got increasingly better throughout the night, right? Like the last dad band was like actually kind of a semi-serious band that plays a lot. But at one point, this big guest of honor was going to show up, and it turned out to be Collective Soul. Lead singer lives in the neighborhood, and they were going to be playing at the Anthem, which isn't very far from here, not that long from now. And yeah, he did. He played December with the dad band there, just kind of on the spot.
They were actually a pretty good band live.
Yeah.
Like, not to disparage them is just me being a little snobby. I mean, they had their place in time, and I wouldn't have seen them 3 or 4 or 5 times had I not enjoyed going to them. Just happened to go with like this girlfriend really liked them, and then the next one so it just and then I went to like some weird jamboree thing, and they happened to be playing there too, stuff like that,
Yeah, so sometimes they're just around, right?
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's one of those things though. It like all that music still stays with me, and it's like, what are your go-to music of right now of those time periods?
If I'm going back into the 90s, and I was doing this a little bit today, I actually kind of go back for some quirky stuff. So some of the standout songs would be "Brimful of Asha."
Okay,
is a really fun one to just sort of throw on. I do like "Steal My Sunshine." It's got a nice little uplifting beat. The Eclipse brought it back for me. They Might Be Giants. I was going to say,
I bet it's They Might Be Giants. Yeah.
And that's one that I'm so happy to have passed on with my kids.
Yeah.
And so there's a genuine love of They Might Be Giants in this house.
And that's one of the ones that I've missed seeing live. And it was like one of the ones that eventually I'm hoping to catch, but
yeah, if they're touring and they have a horn section, it's well worth it. They tour with great musicians, and they've played with a lot of the same backing band for a long time. My daughter, to go back to the whole folk thing, Dar Williams is another artist that I liked a lot when I was in college. And my daughter has a CD player in her room, and she likes a couple of songs by Dar Williams, and she never changes the CD in her CD player. So right now it's Dar Williams' Mortal City, and she's playing that over and over and over again. And she can sing like every song on it. And I catch her singing like even like the deep cuts on it all the time. It's crazy.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So not a Swiftie?
Not a Swiftie. I mean, she knows songs, but she's not falling over for it, and she's not asking for tickets or anything. Thank goodness, because there's not much I could do.
Yeah.
Other things in the 90s that were a lot of fun for me. Nine Inch Nails, I'd go deep on, because Pretty Hate Machine and Downward Spiral are just a couple of incredible albums. So. Thank goodness. And even some early Wilco, like early 90s Wilco is something that I would revisit a lot.
And that's one of the bands that never clicked with me. And I have tried. I went and saw them in concert with you.
I know. Well, after the soccer game?
And it was like, they're good. Like, it was one of those things where I'm like, oh, this is garbage. I hate this. It just, for whatever reason, and I have tried numerous times to get them to click for me, and it just hasn't hit, where other bands like Cracker I can listen to all the time. That'd be one of my bands from the 90s. Like Cracker is one of my mainstays for sure, and I've seen them 100 times.
I've seen them a bunch. I saw was it just Dave and Johnny?
Okay.
Johnny, I saw them at Martyrs. An incredible show. We got a bootleg of that. That was a great show. Just the two of them.
Yeah, I got to see them in a little small. I saw they played at in Crystal Lake, Illinois. They played at the town festival, and then they went to one of the nearby pizza places and played 4 more songs there. So we rushed over. That was years ago, cool. But it was pretty cool. It was about 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was just like
So revisiting the 90s. Actually, I've had a lot of fun. Do you listen to that podcast, 60 Songs About the 90s?
I've listened to some of it on your recommendation, yes.
Yeah. So I've gone through every single one. I absolutely love the way he kind of makes these songs fit in the 90s. And so like some of those will be jumping off places. And it's also encouraged me to like go back and revisit a lot of hip hop that I just sort of decided I wasn't listening to in the 90s. And much to my own discredit, because as big as grunge was, hip hop was becoming ascendant that entire time.
It's considered
And
the golden age of hip hop. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wasn't paying attention. And like that's
Nor was I.
on me.
Nor was I.
Yeah. So I get now, as a much more like a music explorer as opposed to a collector, I get to go back and explore all of these things that I just wasn't paying attention to at the time and finding new things to love. Mm-hmm. So De La Souls, like all of their music just got onto Spotify last year, and I thought it was fantastic to go through
and that's where, you know, I'll listen to something like more recent, like Gorillaz, mm-hmm. and then the roots with De La Soul, and it'll send me back that way, and then I'll start to learn that kind of stuff. Or like in the, you know, the stuff that hip hop I have a very tenuous relationship with. Mm-hmm. The music and the beats and everything is the part I love. If I can't sing the lyrics for certain words in it, I don't feel comfortable with it, and that's a me problem. And I'm fine with that because I don't feel it's for me. And but I will listen to like a Danger Doom, or, you know, MF Doom, or Ghostface, you know, certain things like Wu-Tang that I have found through other means, such as martial arts movies and mm-hmm. other things that have connected me to, like, you know, RZA and just, you know, things that way. That's how I've kind of found my way back into like certain types of hip hop. I've also had friends, you know, that have shown me just instrumental hip hop, such as Blockhead, or mm-hmm. You know, things like that that I've really enjoyed. But a lot of the 90s stuff I didn't really, you know, when it came to like you know, Death Row Records, I wasn't wasn't ever my thing at the time, and I have nothing but respect, but I'm not going to win a trivia contest if you're gonna, you know.
No, and it kills me. So I would do, you know, I love playing trivia, and I would play some music trivia and 90s trivia. I would do pretty okay, and then my wife and I played 2000s trivia, and I absolutely bombed. Mm. And it was all music. There was a lot of hip hop music that I just wasn't paying attention to at the time. Yeah. And I was just thinking to myself, like, Flaming Lips had an album in the 2000s. Wilco had albums in the 2000s. Beck had albums in the 2000s. Come on, bring some of that.
Yeah, where's the Radiohead?
Right, exactly. Hit A, come on. Yeah. So, yeah, that would have been a lot of fun. We saw Radiohead, too.
We did see Radiohead. We saw them, man, like the perfect time, too. It was right after Amnesiac.
Yeah, but it was just before Lollapalooza started doing it in Chicago every year. Mm-hmm. And I thought that Radiohead show was sort of like a little bit of proof of concept that you can get a crowd that large into and out of that area, and then that sort of like opened the doors for Lollapalooza.
And it still surprised me at how well that concert sounded. It blew me away that outdoor venue would sound mm-hmm. that great, you know. So my son goes to school at Columbia in the city. Okay. And so whenever I visit him, like, that's where I saw Radiohead, like right there. Mm-hmm. You can walk down the street, right across the street from where your music building is. I saw Radiohead right there, you know. he's like, okay, Dad. He shares my love of Radiohead, but I mean, he is surpassed me when it comes to music in every possible way, you know. So mm-hmm. you know, he's at the point where he can hear a song, pick up a guitar, and just play it, you know. He's writing music. It's, you know, pretty fun. In fact, this podcast is going to have one of his songs that he's got out on Spotify. So yeah, that'll be our intro song today. It's he's Neurocase on Spotify. It's a lot of 8-bit chiptune sounding stuff, but I thought it kind of fit what we were talking about. The chiptune sound of the Super Nintendo of the early 90s music, so that's why I put that.
I think you said something about that on Facebook a while ago, and I went and like looked him up on Spotify and started listening to some of his stuff.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so I guess he found a new streaming service that he's liking, that he's going to move all his stuff over onto, and he said he was going to remix some of it and get rid of some mm-hmm. of the duds that he felt were on there. And told him some spelling corrections because that's a dad thing to do. And like you spelled the word vacuum wrong in your song title, you know that? And, oh no!
It's
And
it's
now the
art,
whole
Dad.
world can see it. Even though you only have 7 monthly listeners on Spotify, all 7 minus me
Everybody,
6, they all see it. Yeah.
everybody knows.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, another thing that was, I think, golden at that time was a lot of movie soundtracks and a lot of compilation albums got me into broader tastes. And
Sure.
so things like the Judgment Night soundtrack, the single soundtrack, like they would really broaden the things I'd be listening to.
Hmm.
And it was to me like the start of these musical collaborations that I wasn't really aware of until
Judgment
I
Night's a
found out
great
that they were
pick.
everywhere.
Judgment Night,
Yeah.
talk about like metal and rap mixed right there. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that was like the perfect fusion of cultures right there. That I mean, that you
Yeah.
nailed it right there. But then like, and then you said what singles?
Mm-hmm.
Then The Crow,
Yeah.
because The
Yeah. Good
Crow,
album.
had like that introduced me to bands like I think it was KMFDM and I want to say
There's
uh,
KMFDM on that?
it might have been.
Mm.
Maybe it wasn't. Maybe no, it was My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult is the one I'm thinking of.
That's on there.
But it was like
That's
that
for sure.
industrial dance music sound and a lot of that in there. So there was some really cool stuff on that soundtrack. I mean, obviously it had Stone Temple Pilots and some other bigger names
Yeah.
on there, but yeah.
Machines of Loving Grace, I
Machines and
think, is
Loving
another one
Grace
that's
was a
on there.
great one too. Yes, the Golgotha
Yeah.
Tenement Blues. Yes, I remember that one. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it was a good time for that. So I Married an Axe Murderer soundtrack. I listened to that endlessly.
Yeah, Empire Records, Reality Bites was like the kind of
Yeah.
like the counter to singles. I was more on the single side of it, but the Reality Bites soundtrack had some really good stuff on there.
Mm-hmm.
The Clerks soundtrack,
Yes.
you know, had a lot of
Chewbacca.
yeah. Well, that was interesting because that was like a whole movie made,
Oh, yeah.
and then it was sold, and then they're like, hey, let's just slap a soundtrack onto it, and you know that all came
Mm-hmm.
later and part of the marketing of that movie, which actually turned out pretty good for it. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, soundtracks were a huge thing. Where I mean, I always listen to scores, and I still listen to a lot of movie
Mm-hmm.
scores, but that decade in the 90s had so many good soundtracks with just compilations of music that I don't know if it's done really well anymore like that. That like to get like a motion picture soundtrack that would have a collection of music. But like again though, the scope of music's changed where you can hear that. I mean, music gets popular because of a TikTok. You know,
Yeah, I'd be introduced to new music in a lot of those soundtracks. And I think now lately I'm not introduced to new music, but I'm sort of like reintroduced to music I liked and have forgotten that I like. And like pretty much any Marvel movie soundtrack would kind of be that. Not the score, but like
sure,
Guardians of the Galaxy is a good example.
sure.
So I'm not getting a lot of new music from a lot of the movies that I'm seeing. Also, I'm not seeing a lot of movies.
Okay. But I'll say one thing is like a lot of TV shows
Mhm.
have really upped the game in the soundtrack department now, where you'll get some end credits with like some incredible tune. And a lot of times like I'll have my phone on and I'll Shazam whatever I'm listening to on the television to find out
Mm-hmm.
what's going on. And I just had to do it this last week for a song. I forgot what it was, but that's how I've kind of like found some new music. Television shows like Ozark or The Bear.
Yeah.
Some I don't know what you've been watching. I mean, we haven't really like just so you know, like Mike and I, like I said, we've been friends forever, but we hadn't really talked much, and all of a sudden we jumped in, and like 2 minutes later we're doing the podcast. So we've done zero catching up, and so I have no idea really what's going on in his life, and I'm guessing the same.
Well, if you
Unless
I watched The Bear. You should know that.
okay, well I'm not done. I'm almost done with season 2. So,
Okay.
but there's been some incredible music in that show.
Oh
And
yeah. No.
some stuff that, just like you said, like, oh yeah, that's a great song. I haven't heard that in a while. And then they'll throw something else out there. And I'm like, I don't know what's this guitar from. This is beautiful. I got to find out what this is.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh, like that initial like really stressful guitar that they open The Bear with.
Mhm.
So when I this is the great thing about having Spotify or being a music explorer is I can just go and do a search for The Bear playlist, and a lot of the songs that are there, and I can just start kind of exploring those.
And that's been a topic of this podcast in the past. In our few episodes since restarting this, we've discussed how easy it is to get music, and how we've lost the joy of cracking a CD open, popping it in, and then looking at the linear notes and just reading along with the lyrics as you're listening to the song, and just kind of cranking through it that way, and just like the smell of an open, of that book, and all those things, all those like tangible things that you would get when you had physical media, where now we don't have that, but I have everything. I have absolutely everything at my fingertips. If there's something that I can't find, it's probably doesn't exist, or it's one of those like fable songs that
But you would get rewarded when we collected physical media. So I think didn't you get a copy of the Nine Inch Nails? I think it was Broken, that had like a little mini disc in it.
I do have that. I have it. Yeah.
That's you, yeah. So like that's a total reward. Sometimes that you would be getting things on CD that come with bonus CDs that you didn't know of. I had this. James was a band I listened to a lot when I lived in Ireland. Mm-hmm. I bought this greatest hits that came with this live set that I've not been able to find anywhere else, not even on streaming. And that was a great thing because I only had like a handful of CDs while I was living abroad. So I got a bonus. If each of these cost $20, I didn't have a lot of money when I was living abroad. So extra, right?
Yeah. But I mean, it was like always like that exploration, like in like an album. I still listen to music as it's an album. So if there's like a new Jack White song that comes out that I like, I don't just go and listen to that one song. I listen to the whole album when he releases it. Mm-hmm. If Beck comes out with an album, I listen to the entire album. I think the album experience is something that I don't know. Like I don't know if I'm like doing this like personal crusade where I'm trying to keep it alive, because I just think it's kind of special that somebody put together a chunk of music, with maybe some connective tissue between the songs, maybe not, doesn't matter, just that whole deal. I really, really like that. And it's like, I don't know, or either that or it's like a dopamine hit that I used to get that I'm still struggling to find again. I don't know what it is. And, but like, I'll still go on Spotify. I'll have it on my computer screen while I'm doing work. And then I'll click the button that shows the lyrics. Like I'm going through the, reading the lyrics in the book. And I don't know if I'm like, if that's like something a lot of people do, or just the way I do it, Like I listen to albums. I don't listen to songs. Mm-hmm. So if I'm in the car, I'll put on Midnight Oil, Diesel and Dust, hit play, start it with Beds Are Burning, and let it roll through all the way to the end. Sometimes skip a song every once in a while. But that's how I listen to things. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, how do you, are you consuming that way, or are you one that I guess like one of the other options is you go and listen to a song and it gets thrown into an algorithm because you like it, and then it spits out a few other songs that you might like. Are you finding music that way?
So I listen to albums when I want to, and that's especially when I'm making the time for it. Like I'm making a big meal. This is a great one to listen to A Ghost Is Born on. So I'm going to do that.
Animals, perfect for it.
Perfect, right? So I just want. There are times when I want an album, and there are also times when I just want good music that I like, but I don't necessarily want it to be all the same artist or the same feeling. So those are times when I let the algorithm do the work. And there are times when I really feel like exploring, like I want to hear things I haven't heard before or I don't know, but based on a certain taste. And so Spotify will take one of my playlists and then add things to it that it thinks fits in. And sometimes it's like way wrong. Sometimes it thinks I like Paul Westerbeck way more than I really do.
No, I think it's true. I think it knows.
Like I was just it's a world-class fad, but it's gonna pass off. But so that's how I find a lot of new music. And sometimes that's been super rewarding because I've gone to see two bands based off of that. It kept on feeding me this artist called Yola, Yola. And she's British. She is powerful. Like her voice, a very soulful voice, kind of country adjacent. But when I saw her live, I was hoping to hear a lot of the songs that I really liked. and I got a lot of new stuff, and that new stuff was incredible. So I mean, if she only had a horn section, that would have been beyond perfect into heavenly. It was absolutely the best. And the other band I got to see that way was Haim, Haim. And you brought up Taylor Swift earlier. They used to open for Taylor Swift, like
Wow.
even on the Eras tour a little bit. I got to see them here in DC. It's three sisters, and they're doing killer stuff. But I found them because I sort of let Spotify do the walking, and then eventually it fed me 2 or 3 of these songs. I thought this is pretty good, and then I would go find an album that they put together, and then see what they're talking about.
So my algorithm has kind of become my son.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been feeding me music, and he's like, "Hey, Dad, I want to go see this band." And this is one thing I wanted to bring up and kind of talk about. And it's more like, to me, it was a "Kids Are All Right" type of moment where there's this band called the Rare Americans. I think it's actually a Canadian band, ironically enough,
Mm-hmm.
who have sort of like a hip hop background, a lot of guitar. Pretty good music. Not like something I typically would have like gravitated towards, but he really wanted to see him. He wanted to take his girlfriend. He was probably just turned 18 at the time. And I got him the tickets for his birthday, and I said, I'll go with you. So he's like, yeah, great. So I got 3 tickets. We went to this place, Thalia Music Hall in Chicago.
Been there. I've been there.
Oh,
That's
man,
awesome.
that place is amazing. That's one of the best
Yeah.
places I've seen a show at. And absolutely, like, just a kick-ass venue. I don't know what to expect out of this completely Gen Z crowd. I've been to, I've been to the Gen X crowd. I've been to the Boomer Band crowds. I've been to
Mm-hmm.
a lot of those, but this is a new one for me. And how is it going to pan out? And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how it panned out. So the guys come out, they start playing the music, and their whole theme is, I think it was like, hey, the world sucks, but we got music. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, don't, peace and love. We're all about music. We're all here together to celebrate together. And through the power of music, we're going to fix that. It's just a little flowery and over the top, but a great sentiment. I'll never knock that sentiment,
Mm-hmm.
And about 10 songs into the set, he's like, I got to get closer to you guys. He grabbed his microphone stand with his guitar, his acoustic guitar, over his shoulder, walked off the stage, and walked right in the middle of the crowd, right in front of me, and my son and his girlfriend, and a circle formed around him, and not one human in that crowd went to pat him on the back or touch him.
Hmm.
Nobody mugged, like, just, I've seen Courtney Love jump into a crowd and, like, barely get back up on the stage wearing any, just it's just like, I know that, like, the Boomer and the Gen Z or the Gen X crowd would have torn somebody like that apart to do that. If Eddie Vedder's
Yeah.
going to walk into a crowd, he's not going to end up with his shirt, and nobody in this crowd, and I don't know if it's a COVID thing or I don't know.
Good day. Good day.
I don't know, but it was about 2 years ago that we went to this, and nobody did anything except, like, cheered, and there were, like, tears in some of the people's eyes because, oh my gosh, one of my favorite musicians is right in front of me. Because this entire crowd, this was like, they knew every song, they knew every word. He went and played 3 songs right in front of us, went back up on stage and finished the set. And it was unbelievable. Like, he had a guy come down with him, but he was there to, like, make sure nobody was tripping on the cord. He wasn't, like, watching for other people to, they just knew. Like, and I'm like, this was just, like, an amazing, it hit me where I was, like, really proud of, like, my kid's generation. Like, that they like, he's like, no, why am I going to touch my son's, like, he had, like, no, like, I don't want anything to do with that. I don't want to, I'm just like, I don't know, is it like a COVID thing? Is it a, it was just, and I always felt that way about my, like, kids, like, year in school. It was always, like, a really kind group of kids, but I didn't know if it, like, transferred beyond his school. He got really lucky in the year that he went there, but, and obviously this there was a range of ages in this crowd, but most of it was, Gen Z, and it was just like one of those, like I said, a kids are all right thing where I'm like, man, it was just this really it took me back to like that early 90s feel of, where Verge Overkill came out in the crowd, they would have ripped his guitar off and we would have torn all the strings and run home with him, because that's
Right.
just kind of how that was. But it was like, but everybody was like there for the same reason. And it wasn't really to get his
Mhm.
guitar, but, like that love of the music and the artistry and just wanted to be part of it. And it felt like that, like at another level though.
Yeah.
And I was just like super happy about it. So yeah, it was cool. And
What a great moment for you to share with them.
yeah, and so I like got some of it on video, and I'm like, and I was just telling everybody about it ever since that show, that it was the last thing I would have ever expected to happen, at a concert. Like I thought they were going to turn the lights down. Marijuana's legal in the state. It is just going to light up like you wouldn't believe. And I didn't even
Mhm.
smell anything like the entire show. It was like, and it was like, huh. Okay, this is. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of like Ritalin going on and Adderall. Who knows? But the
Yeah.
point was, it was just like nothing but a positive experience, and I would see that. I want to see him again now, and just kind of. I appreciated the crowd. I appreciated the vibe. So another band like he got me into was like Polyphia. I don't know if you've heard Polyphia.
I don't have not Polyphia. I'm writing these down, by the way.
Yeah,
This is
right
the other
down.
way. This is the other algorithm.
Yeah, Polyphia.
Suggestions from friends.
So he wanted to go see this other band called Polyphia, which is like uh, he ended up not being able to go because he also that same day signed up for a Super Smash Brothers tournament at the University of Michigan, where he was going to meet his friend, and they were spending a whole weekend. So I said go, and I took a friend to go see Polyphia. There was a jazz duet that opened up before them. I'm sorry I don't have their name offhand. It was like the two people in their name. I'll get it to you later though. But it was just fantastic. Where it was
In the
just
show
like
notes.
it was like watching Whiplash, the movie,
Mm-hmm.
and just like the precision drumming with precision piano playing, and like just like you could tell like they're changing time signatures within the song, and it was just like they're putting on a show. It's fantastic. And Polyphia comes out, and I saw not only the best guitar player I've ever seen in my entire life, but also the second best guitar player I've ever seen in my entire life when it came to technical precision. And
Mm-hmm.
the guy's name's Tim Henson, the guitar player. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the music is look up the song Goat, G-O-A-T, G.O.A.T.
Mm-hmm.
Look that up, and it was just like they ended the show with that one, but phenomenal music, just phenomenal. So I want to talk about 90s music, but then the other thing is like, and then my kids will come to me and be like, "Oh, you had all the best music ever." And it's like, yeah, it's because I force fed you it your entire life. You really didn't have
Yeah.
much of a choice. I'm force feeding you what I like, and you happen to latch onto it, which made me happy. So I'm happy to take you to see Pearl Jam and Greta Van Fleet, but you know, there's more out there. And right now, I always tell them, you've got everything. Not only can you listen to the 90s stuff, but you can also listen to Papa's stuff from the 70s. And then you got
Mm-hmm.
all your stuff, like this
Yeah.
Polyphia, like this Rare Americans, like the I don't know, whatever. He's got some crazy ones, and he gets it now, I think, a little bit more. And I think my other son, who's kind of coming, my other son's more of like the Iron Maiden kid.
Mm.
He's playing Megadeth songs with his friend in a small band they got right now, which is kind of funny, you know.
That's cool.
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. It was friends
Yeah.
like serious drummer, so it's pretty cool.
I
Yeah,
didn't. So I didn't get the moment you got, but a feeling that I got at both seeing Yola and Hein was that um, there's plenty of great stuff out there, and I have not. It's the great things I saw in the '90s were great in the '90s, and they'll remain great memories. But I'm in no way done being a music explorer, and the generation that's are coming after me, my kids' generation, they're going to have some great music to grow up with that I did not force feed them.
Yeah.
And I was really happy about that.
Yeah.
So, it's not like I calcified in the '90s, and so did music. No, I may have calcified in the '90s, but music is just fine, and it's gonna keep going.
yeah. I mean, just because you could think about all the things that become popular out of those times, and then the stuff
Yeah.
that you dig deeper that wasn't as popular that is just as amazing. you know.
Mm-hmm.
But then I also love the fact that some of these bands are still kicking. I love the fact that I
Yeah.
was able to see Cracker, a month before COVID shut everything down, and I
Yeah.
possibly might get a chance to go see him in September.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I got to see most of you too when they were at the Sphere.
most of you two. Oh, you got to go to the
But,
Sphere?
yeah.
Yeah, how was that
Yeah.
experience? Talk about
Oh
that.
boy. Okay, so the reason I say most of you too is because their drummer was too ill to play, and
Uh,
he didn't play any of the Sphere shows. So they hired a new drummer. So that's why I say most of you too. Um, and also because like U2 is like one of the only bands, and I think maybe we'll talk about this before we wrap things up. But that's all original members, right? So and where that kind of matters. So I got to go see them at the Sphere, and that was an incredible experience.
I bet.
Visually, it was everything you would expect. Like there's basically a really big immersive IMAX in front of you. When we walked in and we sat down, you basically were looking at a wall. There's like this projected image of a wall, not even projected. It's just like a screen showing you a wall, and that's there for like an hour and a half while a DJ is playing and everyone's kind of getting their seats and everyone's having a nice time. Then U2 comes out and the wall starts breaking apart and light starts pouring out of the cracks, and then you're into all of Achtung Baby, which was an incredible album.
That's my
And
favorite U2 album. And I'm not a
it's the
U2 fan.
one.
I'm not a huge U2 fan. I really
Mhm.
wish I saw them at the Sphere, but I do love the Octoon Baby album.
It is an incredible. Looking at a venue like the Sphere, there's not a lot of artists that can really do something with that space. So I felt that U2 was one that could do something, that Achtung Baby is the album that could do something with, and that technology was right for the combination of those two things. In addition to the visuals, the sound was perfect. And there are no giant speaker stacks that you can see inside the Sphere. So you get in there, and the stage and the band is small. It's diminutive. It's not taking up a lot of space. And they just have these like little lights on cranes, and that's basically it. But there are speakers everywhere that you can't see. So no matter where you are in that place, the sound is absolutely perfect. It's not loud, but it's immersive. But it's as loud as you need it to be to enjoy yourself. And when you walk out, it's not like you've got tinnitus or anything and you have like
Nice.
ringing in your ears. It's just perfect. My brother's a big Fish fan, and he didn't go to the Fish shows, although a friend of ours from high school, Brian Frost, apparently did. I follow him on Facebook. And the visuals looked amazing. Sound was probably really good. And I guess Dead and Company is the next group that's going into there.
So
But I'm curious to see.
They're just gonna fill it with jam bands now, because we were having a discussion. I didn't know that Dead and Company was there, and I heard Fish.
Yeah, Dead and Company is next.
What other bands do you think would work in there? Because I mean, honestly, U2 seem like the perfect fit for it.
Right.
Like the more I thought about it, I couldn't really, and because of that, I can't really think of any other band that I think is good for it.
I think Coldplay could do something in there.
No,
Um,
they're not that.
I'm not saying I would go.
But that's exactly why I say no.
Yeah.
It's because
So like,
I don't like do I think Radiohead could put something together and be amazing in there? Yeah, but I think the audience is super limited. And I don't think I think you have to have like a band that reaches out to everything but has a level of technical scale to them. Like Pink Floyd in their prime would be a perfect example of something that I think could go in there.
yeah, Pink Floyd can go.
Yeah.
Like, not the remaining members of Pink Floyd right now.
No, we're beyond it. It's past, but it'd have to be like early '80s Pink Floyd, perfect.
Yeah, but this would be a venue that could service that well. I don't know if it's going to go that way, because I think they're going to want to start getting some younger artists in there. But the problem with getting younger artists is you might have younger crowds, and these have to be crowds that are going to go. They have to go to Vegas and throw down all the other money it takes to be there just to go to that show.
Yeah, they don't have
so
the money.
I think strategically, I can see why they're doing, U2, Fish, and Dead and Company, because this all pulls from the demographic that probably can afford to do this.
Exactly. So that's what we were thinking. Like, who else can do it? Like, Nine Inch Nails would be phenomenal in a situation like that. But can they sustain? How long could you sustain Nine Inch Nails doing something like that? Because I imagine you'd want to do it for at least a month or two, right?
Yeah, well, Fish only did 4 shows.
Or, yeah, I mean...
Yeah.
But what it takes to do 4 shows,
Yeah.
The effort that you'd have to put in there. That's why I'm saying, like, U2 they had a pretty long run.
Mm-hmm. But it was the same show every day.
It's the same show, but still,
Yeah.
So, wow, I'm
Yeah.
glad you got to experience that. That's really, I'm jealous. That's awesome. So that's
Yeah.
a really cool
I made
experience.
time for that one.
Yeah.
I made time for that one. I took my son to go see Metallica in St. Louis not that long ago. So there's a good and a bad to that. Like, it was awesome to see Metallica. They were doing 2 nights, no repeats between the 2 nights. We saw the second of the 2 nights ending with Enter Sandman. So we got a good show. I got to see them perform one. I was very happy about that. And it was a great time. And I loved going to see that show with, and it's his favorite band. I bought him a hoodie while he was there for that he's going to get married in. Like, he has worn that hoodie about at least once a day, every day since November of last year. Okay. So we saw that. And then this year, Green Day is coming to town.
Whoa. You said there's good and bad. I want to hear the bad.
I'm getting to it.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay, I'm sorry.
So Green Day is coming to town, and Green Day is in town when he can't see them because he's going to be out of town. So he's like, oh, darn. Okay, well, I guess I'm not going to see Green Day. But, Dad, they're playing in Chicago, so why don't we just go over to Chicago and see them there? Like, all right, I've set this bad precedent with you. This is the bad part, where we travel for concerts. And yes, we will travel for Metallica, who's only doing a handful of dates throughout the United States. But like Green Day, we're not traveling for Green Day. Green Day will be fine. Also, they have Smashing Pumpkins opening for them, and I'm not making time to go see Smashing Pumpkins. I'm certainly not going to go travel for them. So he's got this idea in his head, like, we can go see any concert anywhere. No, not really.
Man, I am killing to take my kids to see Radiohead. It's the one act that I really, really want them to see with me, because like my wife hates Radiohead, like with all of her, all her everything, hates Radiohead, just does not connect with her at all. And but my boys really, really love Radiohead. We don't listen to Radiohead around Mom, or if we do, it's like maybe she won't notice it's a Radiohead song. and sometimes we'll get away with one. And
just turn the volume up a little at a time.
Yeah. And so that'd be like one that I might consider traveling for. But other than that, no. Like, like I said, like I've seen Pearl Jam like probably 15 times. And when I go to the shows, because I'm in the fan club, so I get the good seats, and I'm always sitting by other fan club members. And they're like, yeah, it's my 50th, or like they're holding the sign that like, like this is my 100th show. And I just can't imagine, like the amount of times I've seen this band is over a 30-year period, 35 years. I've seen them, I guess, every, when they come, they do 2 shows, I'll go to both shows. Because the good thing about them, it's a different show every single night. I'm going to get a completely different set list. That's what I like about them. And it's like, okay, maybe they're going to play that one song that I haven't heard before. And like that's part of the game. And now I can share it with the kids who are into the band. But it's like also like, when I'd go see Star Wars at midnight for a midnight showing of the new Star Wars movie, and everybody's like, oh my God, you're such a nerd. And then I'm like, no, you got to see the other people that are going to this midnight show that are dressed up and fighting each other with lightsabers. Like those guys put me to shame. Like I'm not even a fan, just like when I've seen Pearl Jam this many times and they're like, I've seen them 50 or 60 times or they've lost count. And, and it's just like, that is just, dedication. Like, I mean, I bet your brother has some stories with Fish, He
Same does,
thing with like just traveling with the band. And I could never be that. I just don't have the time for that or the money, or I probably and now I don't have the stamina for something like that.
That's what it's coming down to. It's just time, money. I'm like, I'm not sure I want to do this tonight.
I don't like standing at concerts anymore. Like,
yeah, and like if my wife and I were to go to one, and like we don't do this very often. She's not into concerts, not into music. Jimmy Buffett was her thing, and she was really she mourned a lot when Jimmy Buffett died. And
a lot of Margaritaville around the house.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
Like, so
cheeseburger in paradise.
I got us the Sirius XM so that I could stream Radio Margaritaville on the Sonos that we have throughout the house. Because like when you're mourning someone, it's important to have them around, right? And so she was really mourning Jimmy Buffett. She and him went to the same high school, many years apart, but they went to the same high school. And so that's her thing. But we went to go see the Flaming Lips at Pitchfork ages ago, like pre-kids. And luckily, we're still married because we were in a part of the crowd that we couldn't escape. And I'm 6'2", so I'm fine, but she's 5'2", and she can't see a thing, and it's just getting more and more and more condensed. And neither one of us really has patience for that anymore.
Yeah, you and I saw Flaming Lips do the softball.
Yeah, they did.
That was one of
all of Stock Bulletin.
Was that the last show that you and I saw together?
I think so.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That was a good one. I was working it, and they played that Dark Side of the Moon bit at the end.
Yes, they did. They played Brain Damage, I know for sure, at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, they did Brain Damage because they were playing that down at the Iron Yards on the south side. Mm-hmm. Immediately after. That was a great show.
That was a fantastic show. I thank you for that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it just like all of these different relationships have been able to set up with music over the years. I'm seeing my kids start to form them. You've seen your kids.
Oh yeah.
Really pick it up and go, and like where it fits in with the family. My next project in the house, we've only been in our house 2 years, but I do have a vision of like one of our walls is going to have basically our favorite song lyrics on them. And so we're going to be laser etching those into wood. That's going to go onto the walls, and cool. We're going to just continually add to that. There's usually a song lyric for everything. And everyone in the house has some favorite song lyrics that they like to trot out.
So slowly but surely, the basement is turning into like the music room more than anything. Mm-hmm. It got some movie posters out there too, but I don't buy T-shirts at concerts. I'm starting to get posters at concerts now.
I would like posters at concerts too.
I just if I like the art only, it's like one of those things where some are a little dumb and tacky, but if I find one I really like, I'll go and grab that. And also I'll use album covers. So I've got some vinyls that I just pop into the frames, and I've got those hanging out throughout. Any weird ones, like I've got a Weird Al Yankovic on vinyl, or just whatever, just different stuff like that I'll put on the wall, and trying to get more variety. I got a little bit too much Pearl Jam heavy right now. I got to get a little more variety.
That reminds me, I wanted to ask you, do you used to have like a Weird Al Yankovic version of Peter and the Wolf?
That's what's hanging on the wall. That's the one.
That is super rare.
It is. It's exceptionally rare.
You can't find that anywhere.
Yeah. And where I found that was where I grew up, about a block away. There was somebody who worked for CBS Records, and their garage was basically a record store, and it would be all like whatever, stuff that was getting tossed or whatever. He just would have it. I don't know, or it fell off the back of a truck. I don't know, but we'd always, whenever he had a garage sale, it was go there, and he happened to have that Weird Al record, so I got it for like probably $2, And it is a gem. I absolutely love it. Yeah, I still have it. It is hanging on the wall. That's an absolute gem. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the one.
I end up thinking about that one a lot.
Yeah, it's weird. Like I because it wasn't until like a few years ago that I dug it up and found it, and I was just like, I had to play it for the kids. They weren't really into it the way I was. I'm like, this is whatever,
I'd like to hear that again.
Yeah,
that would be fun.
Yeah. See if I should try to see if I can get a digital copy of it somehow.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
So I'm at about 10:30 my time. What do you got?
Yeah. No, we could. Yeah, we're like well over an hour here, so this is like usually where I like to say let's wrap it up. So, Mike, thank you. I really enjoyed this. Let's do it again sometime too. Like
this would be fun.
Talk about maybe some other topic or something. Let me know. Where can the world find you? So one of our 7 listeners, if they want to follow you on the Twitters or the whatevers, you got anything going on? I know you do a lot of science shows. So.
I do a lot of science shows. I'm on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. Goodness knows if I know the name of it, though. If you have chemistry homework, it's probably a good channel for you. I don't know. I'm on Instagram at Faraday's Club.
Hey, I got some 14-year-olds that listen to this. I do know that because my kid has the team I coach. I'm not. It's backwards right now. So I was just trying to be cool, like the people in the party behind me.
You fit right in.
I thought so. Yeah, my baseball team likes to listen to the podcast, and a few of them will ask me when a new episode's coming out. So,
Yeah.
if you got some chemistry,
Yeah.
I know they're going to be in high school next year, so
Well, it's all
chemistry's
there,
coming.
and
Yeah.
it's funny. I've got a bunch of videos on there where I literally blow stuff up, or like explosions, lasers, really awesome stuff. But my number one video at 350,000 views for my 1,000 some odd subscribers is making a graph in Excel, making a calibration curve in Excel, and I can tell when someone is teaching that concept, or when like people are teaching that concept around the world, especially I think in India, I get a lot of hits. Because I just start getting spikes in comments and things like, thank you, or like, can you plug this number in, see what you get? It's crazy making a graph in Excel. And I made that like 10 or 14 years ago.
Speaking of, I should probably give a shout out to Belgium, because that's like our second biggest country when I checked out the stats on who's downloading this podcast. So
My God,
thank you,
and
Belgium.
Dick.
Yeah, thank you, Belgium.
You're huge in Belgium, just a record drop.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, so thanks, Mike. This is a lot of fun. Yeah, let's do it again sometime.
That would be great. I pick up good stuff from this podcast. My wife and I picked up the Star Wars Unlimited game and played it a couple of times already.
Did you seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah, it turns out our game store does not have they sell out of their card or their whatever packs that aren't the starter pack like almost instantly.
Yeah.
They can't keep them in for more than half a day.
It's tough. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, but it was fun.
All right. Yeah, Star Wars Unlimited, you owe me. Made you a sale. All right, goodbye,
That's
everybody.
Right. Take care, everybody. I'm glad. It's good to know you guys do editing on this.
It's not a lot of editing. In fact,